To talk about the whole journey of Nearfield from the start till where we are today. When I start with our mission, what I call power to compute is power to complete. And throughout my presentations, hopefully you will get to know why. For Nearfield, we are in a perfect storm. And that's always the situation that a deep tech would like to be in. And that is thanks to AI growth, the explosive AI growth. Now, if you look at AI, it's so hungry for more compute and for more memory. That is the driver behind putting more transistors on a chip. Now, when you make more transistors on a chip, there is the other side of the story. There is no free lunch, so you have to pay with a lot of energy. Energy is exploding. That is the reason that industry invented itself in a couple of years since now, going to so-called heterogeneous integrations or advanced packaging, which in one hand allows to pack more transistors for more compute. On the other hand, it brings per bit much lower energy consumptions. But again, there is no free lunch. In advanced packaging, a chip today that is being produced using advanced packaging, the yield of the production is extremely low and very critical. Thus, the process control, so-called metrology and inspection, is the bottleneck in the industry. And this is exactly what Nearfield is addressing, that you will see throughout the presentation. Little bit of background. If you look at some of the old, as an example, processors of Apple, here I show M1 to M1 Ultra. What you see, all of these have been made based on 5 nanometer node of TSMC. Same technology. But the price goes exponentially high from left to right because of the high performance. The difference is that M1 has much lower number of transducers, basically transistors, compared to M1 Ultra. 15 billion versus 114 billion transistors, because it requires more compute. How is this being achieved? Same technology, 5 nanometer. Well, the answer is very simple: make chips bigger. That's an innovation in the industry. But when you make the chip size bigger, there is a correlation inverse with yield. If you go through the same process, but you make the chip size bigger, the yield drastically drops, no matter what. You could also intuitively think that when you have bigger number of chips per wafer, because of the defectivities, the number of good chips at the end of the day is less. So that is the drawback of just scaling the size of the chips, to make it bigger, to be able to put more transistors on it. That's one side of the story. But if you look at the upcoming data centers that requires 100,000 GPUs to be able to train so many parameters of the AI algorithms, per data centers you require one full nuclear power plant. It's not far away. Today's the total data centers consumes more energy than the whole Germany. And if you look at predictions of the AI algorithms that are in the roadmaps, going to require about 1,000 zeta calculations. By continuing what we do today, mainly scaling the size of the transistors, you will surpass the total world energy. That's not sustainable. Something else should happen. Then I'm going to talk about the architecture of the chips. So this is what was yesterday. At the left, you have the brain at the center, CPU, GPUs, surrounded by DRAM memories, and you need a lot of bandwidth of memory for the calculations. Making it more, that means the size of the chips becomes bigger, the yield goes down, the energy goes up. So this is how industry a couple of years ago started stacking the memories on top of each other, what you see in the middle, so-called HBM, high bandwidth memory. That way, you'll be able to keep the size of the chip intact while you increase the bandwidth of the memories. And this is how the industry is going forward in coming decades, scaling further in the third dimensions, stacking like a Lego on top of each other. But there is also a limit in the third dimension. There is so much space that is available that you can stack. So on the other hand, the distance, the thickness of these chips and how you connect them have to be reduced. Now, the challenge here is that when you want to stack two of these chips on top of each other, you're talking about two finished chips. A huge added value already is being made. That's a big change in the industry. Back then, if I take it Intel, they produce CPUs. They have different flavor of CPUs in the market. i9, i7, i5, you probably have it in your laptops. What are the differences? Intel has one process to make them, and that's for i9, the highest added value. At the end of the day, yield is not perfect. At the end of the day, when the chip is available, you can test it. Great performance, we sell it as i9. Lower performance, freeze the clock in a speed, we sell it at a lower margin by 5. It's not possible here, because you don't want to bond two chips that are not the highest quality, because you will be limited by this loss. So, in one hand is a finished chip, huge added value is on stake. Second, how you are going to test it. That is the bottleneck of the industry. So far, the way to bond these chips together was by a so-called micro bond, what you see at the left side. Similar to years back soldering, but a smaller sizes. You have about pitches of 400 micrometer, so you can put so much of these interconnects together. What you see, in the third dimensions, these microbonds are very bulky. That means it will reduce how much you can actually stack. The number of interconnects is limited, it consumes much more energy. Industry switched to so-called hybrid bonding. Instead of microbond, they are using tiny copper pads, micrometer and below, where the surface of these copper pads are a nanometer. Surrounded by dielectric, and the bonding happens not only in copper pads but also in dielectric. That is why it's called hybrid bonding. You pay back by the process, how complex it is. Back then in the microbond, if there were defectivities, it becomes much less relevant, because highly likely, looking at statistically also, a lot of them happens where there is no interconnect. That's not the case in hybrid bonding. All the interface has to be perfect. The surface of these copper pads before bonding should be controlled with angstrom level. Otherwise, there will be gap between the two bonds. And that brings the challenge of the metrology. So atomic force microscope, which is nothing more than a nanorecord player, is a perfect solution for this challenge, because it brings angstrom level precision. That's it. However, it's extremely slow. You also need PhD level of user behind this tool to be able to operate it. What we have invented since 2011 is a high throughput scanning probe microscope that can work in a fab. that is being designed from scratch to fulfill what is required in such a harsh environment. So we have increased the throughput, productivity such that it actually, after more than 30 years of its invention, can be used in production. And this is the machine that Nearfield has produced and we are selling to customers, Quadra. Quadra is a fully automated high-throughput metrology systems, which is now used in inline, in the production fabs. It brings angstrom precisions, it is fully non-destructive, and it has the full 3D capability. This is what you get with these systems. As an example, on this tiny copper pad, as you see, on each of these copper pads, you see all kinds of defectivities that is not possible to detect with optical techniques. And because of the productivity, now customers can not only look at on very few samples, but actually they can use to look at the performance of the whole wafer. Where Nearfield plays, and I cannot show all the different applications, but one of the strongest points of Nearfield is that it serves the entire value chain of metrology inspection. It started with after litho, so we perform lithography, and we do metrology with the system to measure the performance of the lithography. The performance is good, the pattern is transferred to silicon, we do after etch metrology. Extremely challenging, we typically talk about very high aspect ratio etch, and you need to measure non-destructively. Going forward, it comes to advanced packaging, like what I showed you, especially on the hybrid bonding area. Because of being non-destructive, because of the productivity that it brings, it significantly also contributes to make fabs greener. In terms of amount of energy consumptions, in terms of amount of waste, and in terms of saving, in terms of CO2 emissions as well. My message is that for the 2D era, where, and it's still the case, where the driver behind the industry was scaling down the transistors, and litho was the enabler, was the control point. For advanced packaging area, customers will continue to shrink wherever they can. So litho will stay, but metrology and inspection is the second potential control point in the industry. Now this is the playground of Nearfield. This is what I said, but let's go back years, 2011, how it started. In 2011, so I show a snapshot, till 2016 we were busy building a proof of concept. We identified the challenge in the industry that is coming in the coming decades, and we started building from scratch such a system that can fulfill these needs. 2016, we founded Nearfield. We secured the first investments while we were also securing the customers. And then in 2021, we were able to ship the first system. So that's one part of the story till 2021. The other is from that moment in 2023, finally, customer, it's public now, Samsung decided to deploy the system in high-value manufacturing, and since then we were scoring other customers. Last year we also raised our Series C investments. And where we are today is fully booked for this year, expanding our production capacity, because today we are limited with what we can produce. And our target is to become market leader by 2030 in the segments that we are playing. 2011, we didn't start with technology, typically what you do in the deep tech. We started with market, talking to customers, identifying the gap, verifying the value propositions. And these were the value propositions back then that we could identify. We could see in front of us that 2D is going to become 3D. That happened at 14, 16 nanometer. FinFET was introduced, and that brought a huge number of challenges for metrology inspections. The number of parameters that the fab had to control became substantially more than what used to be in the 2D. And this was the first sketch that we defined. We miniaturize the scanning probe microscope so much that we can operate many of them in parallel. First, we started in 2013 making the first scan head. See a lot of Kapton tapes. And it took many years to make 2020 the first industrialized version, the serial number 001. This was the proof of concept back then that became live in end of 2015, and that was the moment that I asked customers come test it immediately. It was a manual system, but it could show the DNA of the technology. Customers came, tested one after the other, and one became much more aggressive than the others, and that was Samsung Electronics, who basically shipped about 10 engineers, were in my lab for a week, did all kinds of testing, and then they said, well, we want the first system. Soon after, Samsung venture investment, the venture arm of Samsung offered the investment opportunity, where it was co-participated by innovation industry, and that was the real start. Now let's build the company, let's build the product, let's hire. Renting a better office instead of a two-desk room, start hiring, and start working with the ecosystem. Because we had a very short time to market, we needed to bring the system, we could not go to the classical alpha tool, beta tool, and so on and so forth. You had to rely on the existing ecosystem, and that brought us much further than the classical way. Start building the clean room. We opened our clean room in 2019. This system have to be made in clean rooms. And then we started building the first quadra. We spent a lot of this time to design, thought, okay, integration would go well. Well, you see it here. Days and nights working off my colleagues. It was very tough. All kind of problems. Just look at the number of cables and how messy it is. But we are not only good at making these systems, we are also very good at having fun together. Don't forget that. Well, not to forget that we even got the first rank of the high-tech campus triathlon competition some years ago. In 2020 was a very tough moment for us. Customer needed the solutions before the first planned quadra shipments. They couldn't wait, so they decided to disengage with us. Said, you are too late, we need to move on. We don't see that this will be helpful if we do not adapt it now, and we could not be ready according to the required schedule. So what we do, the night we took the flight to Korea, meet with the decision maker, also booked the second flight to Taiwan, have some negotiations in the backpack, and we could convince them that we can have new plan, much shorter, and we will make that happen. We didn't know how to. Really. And then they accepted. So it was a couple of days after that they sent us the official announcement that yes, we're going to do that, but stick to the time, we are not going to change it. Clock started to tick. It was not anymore a project. We were back then about 40 people. 24/7, that's what I can say. These people, these colleagues, the majority of them are still in the company, all had one vision, we're gonna make that happen. And it was 24/7. I cannot forget every single of those moments. I think the pictures speak for themselves. We will remember till the rest of our life. But again, just that we came together, we worked so hard, we had to be together, then the COVID came, and the world pushed us apart. We had to go home via Teams. Yeah, good luck making systems via Teams. It was very difficult. But again, the colleagues showed that it's possible, and by end of 2020, in December, you see 8 hours of the decommissioning and packing of the core of the systems that we managed to do it. Colleagues managed to do it, and I'm so proud of them. This built not only the foundation of the company, but also shaped the culture and DNA of the company. Exciting moments, shipments, first shipments, that's not easy. That's not easy to ship a front-end equipment to Semicon. You ship the system, still it was COVID. Now a team of installation should go there in Korea, stay in a room 2 meters by 2 meters, 2 weeks in quarantine. So that was the first crew that went to Korea. We even celebrated the New Year Eve together, and then they went quarantine. We had colleagues who went to quarantine 5 times in a row because they could work 3 months, they had to come back again in quarantine. That's the level of commitment. And by the end of 2023, we passed all the evaluations in productions. It was also exciting for customer, and then they decided to deploy the system in high volume manufacturing. Where we are today, we have repeat orders. As I said, we are fully booked for this year. On top of selling the system, and that's something for deep tech, for capital-intensive proposition that I would like you to take home is think also about innovation in the business model. For us, the probe using the system is a consumable. And we could offer them as the highest added value to customer. And that is what we see now as a repeating, recurring revenue, which helps us drastically. We have a big market growth in front of us. Metrology inspection is going steadily high, reaching about 10 billion euro by 2030. Where we are today, we have order book of 73 million, where we are only able to ship to capture 50 million of it this year. The rest will be for next year. We are almost booked also for next year, 124 million. So we see a steep curve in front of us, and that we have to scale. And scaling is very challenging. That's a completely different challenges. We have to make our local support service applications in different countries where our customers are. We are in different countries, literally in every country that there is a major semicon fab, and that means also we have to expand with them. So we have Nearfield Korea since 2020, we have Nearfield US early January this year, Japan and Singapore also this year happened, and we are busy with making also Taiwan. Think of a strong patent portfolio. It is important, especially in a deep tech, often it's very competitive. You need to have a solid patent portfolio as well. We see a growth in front of us. Today, we are about 260 employees. We see a growth in front of us. The amount of work is way more than the number of people, but we don't want to suddenly hire many people because you should secure the culture and DNA of the company as well. Have a good team around yourself. It's so important. And I'm proud of my leadership team that are running the business from different angles, but also my supervisory board. You need to have strong people around yourself, and we are strong in that sense in the Netherlands. There are many experienced people who have done this. Get their help. And I'm very thankful of my shareholders who has backed up since the beginning, ups and downs, who made this possible together with us. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention.
A few questions before we step off stage. First of all, thank you. Have a sip. I will keep on talking so you can hydrate a little after all. Thank you very much. Super interesting and extremely, I think, inspiring what you've already done. And John, you talked about it before. It's really a roller coaster ride. You mentioned some of that as well. How was that for you personally, as a founder of the company? Did you experience the roller coaster as well?
Yeah, absolutely, yes. I mean, you have to be with your team, and I'm very happy that if I look back, I was with my team. So we were one team. So togetherness is what matters at the end of the day.
That's very cool. You want to grow, but you want to keep the culture as well within the company. How do you manage that?
Maintaining the culture is extremely difficult, and I think what works for us is the peer pressure. So the people who admire and have that culture, they screen it. We make wrong hires. By wrong, I mean people that there is no compatibility. Sure. There's no wrong or right, it's just not incompatible. People recognize it. People want to have this culture. This is the reason that they stay and motivated to work. So when you have the right people, when you have the nucleus of the culture shape, you need to build on top of it. And you need to be thankful of them. You need to make sure when the company is successful, you get them rewarded. Don't forget people who joined you at the start, went through this roller coaster, don't forget them.
I think those are magic last words, especially because the people that want to follow in your footsteps will be on stage afterwards presenting their company. Besides rewarding the people that are there with you, is there one final thing that you would like to say to all those entrepreneurs that we have in the crowd today that also want to have this steep journey ahead of them?
Often in the Netherlands, in different event sessions, we hear two things. Especially when we talk about deep tech, on one hand we talk about or complain about lack of money, fund, and also, everything around the scaling of IP from university, from research institutes. There is quite some complaints around these aspects, which are true. There is a lot of room to improve. However, my message to entrepreneurs is it's a roller coaster. At the end of the day, it's about you. If it is success, is your team. If it is a failure, is yours. Don't victimize it. Left or right, you need to make it happen. Do not accept no as an answer.
Do not accept no as an answer. I think that's great advice for everyone, especially maybe not only for founders, but also normal people. Just don't accept no as an answer. Give one big round of applause for our nephew.